Live to the acting Prime Minister Michael McCormack. Acting PM because, as we said, Scott Morrison across the ditch. Mr McCormack, thanks for your time. Does the federal government accept some of the responsibility and accountability for the fact that this fourth lockdown is happening in Victoria?
Well, irrespective of the blame game that's being obviously played out by federal Labor, what we're doing is working closely with the Victorian authorities to make sure that it is only a 7-day lockdown. No doubt, if Victorians do the right thing and the contact tracking and tracing occurs as it needs to, hopefully by Thursday the restrictions will be lifted. This is so important, Kieran, and I messaged James Molino last night to say if you need anything, don't hesitate to contact me. Obviously, we've put 160 Defence Force personnel into that system, into that jurisdiction to assist the Victorian authorities, and they're doing everything they can, the public health officials in that state, to make sure that they get very much this situation under control.
The Business Council boss, Jennifer Westacott, well respected in the business community, obviously well aware of how much this is costing, more than $1 billion, just 7-day lockdown. But she expressed her dismay with Ross Greenwood, my colleague, saying that the Victorian contact tracers have just got process and systems problems. Have they improved enough to deal with these sorts of outbreaks?
Well, that's a matter obviously for Victoria, but New South Wales has been the exemplar, the gold standard when it comes to contact tracking and tracing. And if other states could indeed follow that system, that approach, then we'd be so much better off. And this is so frustrating, not just for Melburnians, but indeed for regional Victorians who are just trying to get on with the job of growing the food and fibre and continuing to do what they've done all along, and that's be their best selves to make sure that they've kept their communities COVID-free and COVID-safe, and indeed many hundreds of kilometres away from where these decisions are being taken. They've still done everything that they've been asked to do as far as mask wearing and social distancing, and just gotten on with their lives. And that's why so many Melburnians, indeed 26,000, have actually made the move to regional Australia. I've said all along that regional Australia is the safest place in all of the world in which to live during this global pandemic.
Scott Morrison said the vaccination rollout isn't a race. Was that a mistake in hindsight? Because it certainly didn't encourage people to get out and get the jab and rush out and do it.
Well, it's not a race. It has to be systematic. It has to be rolled out in a way that Australians obviously need to know that they have to get the jab, but we can't have everybody going and getting it at the same time, and that's why there has been a phased-in system that, and there has been a bit of complacency. We want Australians to get
because we need to get it done. We don't want hesitancy, do we? And that's what we're seeing.
Well, we don't, and that's why 120,000 Australians got the jab yesterday, 120,000 the day before, 111,000 the day before that. We're getting the vaccinations done, 4.1 million already, and I urge and encourage Australians listening and watching this show to make sure that when they're able to do so, when they're eligible to do so, to get that first jab and then, of course, follow it up and get the second.
Is it the federal government's view that the lockdown should be lifted on Thursday?
Well, yes, but that's entirely up to the Victorian state government and their public health authorities. That's a matter for them. But we don't want to see closed borders. We've said that all along. And so long as they've got the situation under control, so long as they're satisfied that they've contacted and had all those people that have contracted the virus, and they've got all them identified, then and they've done the proper health checks and situations to make sure that they've got everyone, then there's no reason why they shouldn't reopen their borders. There's no reason why they should keep people in their homes and away from their offices.
And when you say you said it's not a race, but you look at these numbers, 50% of adults in the US have been fully vaccinated. Only 2% of the population here has received the jab. Australia, 80th in the world in terms of the rollout and the speed of it. We're lucky it's not a race in your view, because to tell you what, we'd be coming close to last.
Well, Adam Bant made this point in question time the other day and made the point about America. Well, Adam Bant, if he thinks America's so great, he should go and live there. We'd all be better off. Situation is, I know where I'd rather live, and that's right here in Australia, where, yes, we've had 910 deaths, and that's been very sad for their families. But we've had just one this year. We've had just two in so many months. And we've been on top of this virus. We've put out, so much economic support, but most importantly, we've had those health outcomes like no other country, and we're doing very, very well as far as keeping the case rates low and keeping the death toll low. And I know where I'd like to be, and that's right in Australia, and where I live in regional Australia, which is the safest place in all the world in which to live.
But that's fair to make that comparison with where we've got to at the moment, but we're, in that football analogy, I know you love your football, we're not in the final quarter yet. We don't want to stuff it up in the final quarter. You look at the UK, they've got Elton John in this campaign to create awareness. In the US, it's Dolly Parton. This is the point that Labor's making. And then across the ditch, they've got this Pathway to Freedom campaign to say to people, please go and get the jab. Why don't we see a widespread awareness campaign?
Well, you mentioned football, and there's been tens of thousands of people enjoying the ability to actually go to the football. I don't see that happening anywhere else in the world. The MCG has been packed over and over again to watch club footy in the AFL, and that's fantastic. And they're going to the horse racing. People are living their lives as much as normal. Well, not at the moment, sure, but that's because of the outbreak in Victoria. But we keep on top of these things. Elsewhere in the world, they're not going to anything at all. They're still very much in not quite Victorian lockdown phases, but certainly, their case rates are much, much higher. Their death toll is staggeringly high. This pandemic is raging still across the world. And you mentioned the last quarter. We're certainly nowhere near the last quarter. I doubt whether we're even near half time worldwide as far as this pandemic is concerned. And of course, then you're getting variants of the disease, of the virus. These are troubling times. These are very challenging times, and we need Australians to continue to do what they've done all along, and that's follow the health advice, get the vaccination, and we are, I know it sounds corny, but we are all in this together.
In that context that you said we've got so much to live through with this thing, are you going to build these standalone fit-for-purpose quarantine facilities around the country, as my colleague Andrew Clennell reported earlier, that the government will be doing this outside of our major cities to make it fit for purpose?
Well, we've said all along that they need to be nearby capital cities because that's where the best health services are. We've said all along that they need to be obviously near airports where we can get international flights into those destinations. And we've said all along that we'll work with states and we'll listen to and look at their submissions very closely, and we'll provide the support, dollar-wise, that we've done the whole way through. Even before the budget, we'd already put down on the table $253 billion of economic support, and that's kept businesses going. I don't know how many times people have come up to me, even just yesterday, and I was out and about up in the Hunter Valley, and so many business people come up to me and said, but for your government support, we would not be in operation anymore. We wouldn't have been able to continue to keep our people employed. And so we've done that, as well as the health outcomes.
Are you going to change the approvals for planes arriving at Toowoomba Airport? Because my understanding is that already large freight planes do land there. They just need federal approval to land passenger planes there, and then the Toowoomba option's a goer.
Well, again, it goes back to what I said before about the health services and also the communities around those particular destinations, and whether the local communities are or aren't in favour of these quarantine hubs being established. Now, of course, with Avalon, it's a situation there where there's a lot of boxes that it ticks. And I know that Toowoomba, the community, is in two minds very much as to whether or not that facility could be opened up as a quarantine facility, could be purpose-built, fit for purpose. And of course, we'll continue to work with local communities, just like we'll continue to work with proponents of these, whether it's the Wagners, whether it's the Fox families, whether it's indeed the state authorities. You
have pre-selected the Maitland Christian School Community Relations Officer James Thompson as your candidate in Hunter.
James Thompson.
Are you confident of picking that up?
Oh, he's outstanding. I mean, I stood beside him yesterday and listened to his narrative about jobs, listened to his narrative about resources, listened to his him talking about family and community. He is an outstanding community member. He and his wife Claire have a lovely 18-month-old daughter. They are ensconced in that community. He has been working for that community and for the education system for many, many years. A great a great Nationals candidate and very much looking forward to campaigning with him as we work towards the next election, whenever that might be, Kieran.
And finally, the industry, the flower growers, they're looking at a decision made by the government in the next few weeks. Currently, they're the only fresh product not to have country of origin labelling. This allows potentially pests to come into the country via those flowers. This is something that I wasn't aware of, but is this something the government should look at to attach country of label origin for fresh cut flowers too?
Well, it reminds me that I probably should go and buy my wife Catherine some flowers, Kieran. I haven't been home all that much lately. I've been touring around regional Australia selling the budget, but indeed, and I'll get them from a good flower shop, local shop in Wagga Wagga, paying less tax thanks to the Liberal and Nationals. But getting on to the point, you look, yes, obviously this is something which we will look at. Obviously something that, anything that comes in from overseas needs to tick off those biosecurity agenda and make sure that they have the right biophotosanitary clauses ticked off. But
so you'd like to see them
it's something
labelled?
we'll look at. Well, they may well need to be. They may well need to be. So, as you say, you weren't aware of it. We've obviously been made aware of it. I know David Littleproud and others, the Ag Minister and others, are certainly looking into it as we speak.
Acting Prime Minister, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Any time at all, Kieran.